Our next accompaniment is a 12-bar blues, and I've called it Black Key Blues. So, as you probably guess, your rule for improvising here is similar to Let's Go and Black Key Waltz. Not quite the same, mainly use the black keys, but there are two white keys that you're allowed to use in this. But you must use them with a little bit of caution. So the two white keys are A and F. I'll explain how they fit in. So the accompaniment is going to sound something like this. And so on. So it follows a chord progression that you may well recognise. It's one of the standard forms of 12-bar blues. Now, because of the key we're in, again, you can just improvise on the black keys, and that will work very well. So you can do this sort of thing. And so on. As always, it doesn't have to be as complicated as that. You could simply start with long notes. It'll sound great as long as it's rhythmical. Now, what about those white keys I mentioned? Well, if I do this, little bit of theory for you. If I just play that's a sort of scale. It's called a pentatonic scale. Penta meaning 5, tonic meaning note. So it's a 5-note scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the top note, the 6th note, is the same as that, but an octave higher. It's actually a minor pentatonic. Now, if I do this, if I had an extra white note, that's a very bluesy sound, isn't it? And that's often called the blues scale. So if you put in a little bit of the A into your improvising, it will sound authentically bluesy. But please don't emphasize it too much. So don't do this, because this won't sound very good. But if you do this, so you see what I'm doing. I'm just, as it were, playing the A in passing, just sort of between other notes. I'm not lingering on it, and I'm not pressing down hard, mostly sort of between the beats. You can experiment a bit with that. I also mentioned F because generally F will fit. Again, I wouldn't do it too much, but and so on. So F will sound okay. It actually makes it a bit less of that very typical blues sound. So, but again, you can experiment. So you can, and you don't have to worry about not emphasizing it so much because it'll, as you could hear, it sounded okay. Just makes it a bit less, maybe a bit less cool sounding. So if you want to just use one white key, I recommend A, but not too much. Now, you might want to just listen through the whole accompaniment, which is on the next video, just to get a sense of the structure of the whole thing. But I want to mention a couple of things now. At one point, I do what are called stops. So I'll demonstrate what I mean. I'll play from a little bit before. And so on. Now, in those gaps, I'm still counting. I'm counting the beat. So I'm going 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, and so on. It's still got to be very much in time, very rhythmical. Now, when I do those stops, you can keep playing. So this sort of thing, I will attempt to show you what I mean with my two hands. So. See what I mean? That will really sound good. Alternatively, you can stop as well. As always, there's no right and wrong, but on the whole, it'll sound better if you do something in the gaps. It will sound really good. We go round the chord progression a few times, and I do a sort of ending which should be obvious. I repeat the last few chords. Listen out for it anyway. The introduction, this one I usually do count in. So I usually do this sort of thing. I start with a chord, and then I say a 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you come in there, so off to the 4. Okay, I think that's it. As I say, you might want to just listen through the whole of the next video to get a feel for the mood and the structure. One more thing, when you're improvising, don't just play it. This has a very rhythmical bass. A 1, 2, 3, 4. And you might be tempted just to play on every beat like that. As always, you can do a bit of that, but I recommend really not doing it very much, because it's a bit boring. You don't need to do it because the bass is doing it. So, as with the previous ones, you could start with some longer notes. And then fill in shorter notes between. And feel free not to do very much. Feel free to leave gaps. As I say, not so much when I leave a gap, but in other places you can leave gaps. But make it interesting. Try and make a tune rather than just going boom, 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 because that doesn't work so well. Okay, that's all for this video. The next one will be the actual accompaniment, and I'll do it at a sort of medium speed, about what I was doing there. And then I'll do another one at a faster speed, when it'll be more like a boogie-woogie, really, rather than a blues, but it's the same chords.